Hi, everybody. I am Leilani, the host of Boss Women Network podcast. I have a special guest. Is it Dr. Hume?
My family would say Hume, but my mother would insist it's Hume.
Oh, okay.
Hume.
I'm going to say Dr. Hume Johnson. She is a brand-centered leadership coach and founder of the Hume Johnson Consulting LLC. Theme owning your value, building your brand, and leading with purpose.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you so much. It is so
Um,
great to be on your show.
I'm so happy to have you. I see that you started in broadcast journalism to political speech writing and to guiding leaders, mid-career professionals through identity breakthroughs.
hmm
Uh,
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about that?
yeah, so go ahead, talk about that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Jamaica and I've always wanted to be a journalist. In fact, I was fascinated by the voices on the radio, on Radio Jamaica. And so I always knew that I wanted to be in the communications industry. And thankfully, I had a supportive mother who didn't question it, a poor Black woman from rural Jamaica who you have these lofty dreams, and she didn't question it. And I'm so grateful for that. And so I went into the capital city in Kingston right after high school. I had signed up for a community college there, but my real interest was to get my voice trained. At that time, broadcasters were getting their voice trained, so you had to go through this voice and speech process for the stage, for the microphone, knowing how to talk in a microphone, and also how to speak on camera, which was really, really useful. At the time, I was 17, 18. I wouldn't want to see those tapes ever again. But but fortunately, I did journalism when I went to university. That's what I studied, television journalism. So I got my first job at the government's news agency, Jamaica Information Service. And so I was their anchor for the flagship program was called Jamaica Magazine. And I was their news presenter for a couple of years. And when you're working at the government's news agency, sometimes I like to say, I don't know that we were doing the kind of journalism which should be interrogative. You're supposed to be questioning government, because as a government's huge agency, we are promoting the policies of the government. And so I left after a couple of years and went into radio as a specialist newsreader. But during the time that I was with the government's news agency, it really brought me into contact with the government a lot, the government ministers, government senators, and that's how I got opportunities to write speeches and consult with the politicians in terms of their messaging, their campaigns, writing speeches when they're in government or when they're in opposition. So yeah,
Wow, you did a lot. How
yeah.
how did you evolve into like brand-centered coaching?
Because when I was in college, I remember I was part of this street protest. Students at the university were protesting. I can't remember what it is. It was an environmental protest. And there was a shipment of plutonium that was going to be shipped through Caribbean waters. And you know, when you're in college, that's the time you're supposed to be an activist. And so we were on the streets and we had invited a lot of the reggae artists, some of the really popular artists like Buju Banton, who is very well known in urban places in the United States, and Tony Rebel. And I remember Tony Rebel saying to me that I heard that you could write. He's looking for a publicist for the reggae artist on his label, which I thought was a great opportunity because, you know, at the time I was a hustler. I mean, I'm in college, I need money. And so I agreed to take on that job, even though I was still learning how to write messages or how to build the brands of people. But later on, I realized that I didn't think I needed a brand. They did. I thought you had records to sell and you're a politician over here. You want votes. Therefore, I will help to build your brand to get your message out. But I didn't think that I needed it because I thought that personal branding was about public figures and celebrities at that time. But once I started to work with these kinds of clients, I realized that I couldn't write a bio for an artist without knowing why they're singing What message do you want to convey? Who you are as a person? Who are you as an artist? Why should people buy your record? Why should people vote for you? Why should people really buy into your ideas? And so that's how we weren't calling it personal branding at the time. It wasn't the buzzword it is now, but certainly you were trying to build the profile of this person, marketing their image and trying to communicate whatever messages they want to whatever publics that they feel that they want to serve or impact. And so that's how I evolved into not just communication, but really building the brand of a politician, of an entertainer. And now mostly my clients are executives. They work in other industries, healthcare, academia. But it's basically the same thing, trying to, and you know how it is. You're a podcaster. You know how important it is to kind of get your message out and
Yes,
for people to understand why you're so committed to this process that you're doing.
most definitely. So, I see that you mentioned that after completing your PhD, you kind of went through a life crisis. What happened
Oh, oh yeah. Uh, you know what? Black people who may be watching this podcast, we are told in whatever country you're watching this from that we should go to school. We should get a college degree because the college degree is going to be that pathway to getting a better job, ending the intergenerational poverty. It is a pathway to social mobility. That's the only way you're going to get out of poverty. And so, we're following the trend of trying to find a profession. You get a job and you get paid and you commit to it. And so after my whole process in Jamaica being a newsreader, how much news can you actually read? And so I'm always thinking, what's next? What am I going to do with my career? And then a friend of mine who had gone to college with me, Lloyd Wallace, now a professor at the University of the West Indies, I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in New Zealand." I said, "Where?" Because I had no idea where New Zealand was. I just thought the only thing I knew about New Zealand was that the cheese in the supermarket and the butter,
next?
they were all made in New Zealand. And he said that they were giving away scholarships to people from developing countries. A poor Black woman, I'm jumping on that. So even though I had a good job, I mean, obviously, you're a television presenter and a radio, whatever, and you're hanging out with entertainers and politicians who wouldn't want to stay in that environment. But for me, I was always zooming out. So the opportunity came to do a PhD. So I just jumped at it and I went to a country that I've never been to. I was glad I did it. If I had to do my life over, I would still take that opportunity to especially live abroad. I would have taken it. But I want to advise people if you're doing a PhD, master's, even a first degree or credential, please know why you're doing it. Do not do it and then try to figure out what to do with it. Because that's what I did. I understood my first degree. I knew I wanted to be a journalist. My master's, I kind of fell into it. I was reporting on politics. So, okay, let's do a master's in politics. And it was interesting. All that time, I had no plan. It was just to get a better job. And so now, when I have this PhD, I did not make a plan
Hmm.
for when I was done. As smart as I was, I had no clear idea beyond, I'll just get a better job. So there were people saying, oh, maybe you could get a job in the UN. And my professor said, maybe you could be a professor. And I said, hell no. No, I do not want to be institutionalized. This is exactly what I said to her. I don't want to be institutionalized because I didn't see myself as a teacher. I never dreamt of being a teacher. I never wanted. It's not part of my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
But she said you may want to find space to become an expert in your field. Because prior to that, it was just confusion. I didn't know what I was going to do. When you're on a scholarship, you're meant to leave the country and go back to your home country. So you're living 4.5 years in this foreign society. I mean, I had a great time in New Zealand, don't get me wrong.
I bet.
But when you're heading back now, you have to come back to your life or to a life. And I didn't have one.
Hmm.
So I was living with my sister. I didn't have granted, I have a PhD. I
Right.
didn't have a job.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
was living with my sister who was hardly making ends meet as well. I was trying to apply for different jobs, and they were telling me that I am overqualified. They can't pay me. I think you can pay me. You may not be able to pay me at my value, but I felt estranged from my profession, from my culture. The culture shock was not New Zealand, it was going home to Jamaica. And I think it was because my focus was on getting a degree, a highest level degree. And I thought that would have just paved the way for me. But that's the wrong thing. It's great to have something that says you're qualified in something, but it
Right.
really only indicates that you've undergone a period of study. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
If you are not communicating what this PhD means, what this master's mean, what this degree means, what skill do I have, what problem can I solve with it, then you're wasting time. And to me, you know, a degree is great, but if you're going to waste resources doing it and you don't have a plan, then
Right.
that's not a good approach.
That makes a whole lot of sense. But it seemed to have really led you somewhere. You may not have known what your purpose was, but it turned out your purpose
Yeah.
was actually teaching
I
um,
don't,
and leading people in some
You
form.
know, I think, Leilani, I think I'm challenged by the word teaching sometimes. Uh, and maybe because I teach undergraduates,
Mm.
and I can tell you that the undergraduates of this generation, a lot of them are there because their parents want to be there.
Yeah.
So I see myself as a coach. I coach them because that's my model, and I
Right.
coach according to the industry demands. What is the environment like right now? It doesn't mean I don't teach principle, because I think if you're in a vocation, you have to know the role of the vocation in the society. So if you want to be a journalist or a podcast, a content creator, whatever, spokesperson for an organization, then what is the nature of what is the role of your vocation in the wider society? So I teach that,
Mm.
but I also prefer to teach skill. So if I teach a lesson, say I'm teaching, last week we were talking about the backlash against DEI,
Oh,
and in my communication in organizations class, and we're looking at different organizations, the regular ones, the ones who have pulled back from
right.
this, and I'm asking them to look at gender. So we're looking at race, religious discrimination, a whole range of issues within organizations. And so after having done that, my thing next week is a personal branding workshop, because I end the semester with a job interview simulation. So students are put to the ringer. I mean, it's scary, but I invite industry professionals to come in, and I have them interview the students, and we simulate a real interview. Why do you want the job? What value can you offer to an employer? Stuff like that. So that whatever you're learning in class, you should be able to tell me, not just regurgitate a definition, but you are supposed to be able to tell me, okay, I learned communication planning. I know how to analyze a problem. I can use communication to solve this key challenge for this particular organization. This is why I'm writing this media release. This is the problem we're trying to solve with this issue. These are some of the concerns about DEI right now. These are the communication tactics that we can use to resolve that problem. To me, this student who is going in front of an employer, this person is not just saying, I have a degree
Right.
or I have experience working here or there. They're able to tangibly say, this is a problem, this is a solution, these are the skills that I can bring to this issue, this is where I've done it, and this is the result that you would get if you were to employ this particular strategy. That's how I teach, because I know from experience that the way that we have been doing education doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. More hands-on. You have some great advice, and I'm sure you are a great coach. From listening to you,
Thank you so much.
especially
Thank you.
since
I
you have
try.
25 years of experience. But I gotta ask,
Right.
how did you gain all this confidence and self-worth throughout the process? Because you were dealing with politicians and things like that, and that can be kind of rough in the
Oh,
political.
yes. Oh yes,
How did you
politicians
handle?
are uber confident.
Yes.
And I think I often tell my students that when you're working with a confident client, and you had this wonderful lady on recently who was talking about public relations. I wish I could have her in my class. I have to get her details from you.
Mhm.
And she was talking about what it takes to work with artists, and I resonated with it because of my experience working with really confident politicians. For me, I had to learn that I'm not the secretary. I think politicians who work with communication practitioners, many times they view us as the scribe. They make the decision, and we're there to put it in the media or make them look good. Whereas the way I've evolved in my own relationship with them and how I'm teaching my communication students is you are a counselor. You are seeing what the issues are. You are looking at the blind spots that they don't see. You are looking at the fallout of their strategy, which we're seeing played out right now in the United States. The messaging around tariffs and all of that is problematic because it's a different narrative around it. So if you are working with someone like this, then it is important to understand what your role is, and not only just understand it, but to be able to push back and to say, well, I think that I understand that that is your decision, but here is what the disadvantage is. Here is where the fallout will come. Here is the problem if you put out this kind of message. And so I think over time, in the when I was younger, I was recruited to the prime minister, that guy behind me, the
Wow.
former prime minister of Jamaica, to his youth advisory council. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had a lot of opinions and wasn't afraid to say it at that time. And some of them were already familiar with me because I was on the TV every evening at 5 o'clock. So I used that kind of leverage to say what's on my mind. And a couple of them, I had been to college with them. They were young senators in the government. And so sometimes yeah, you want to reach to the big person, you have to go around the corner sometimes. And I was always outspoken, and I learned from one leader, that one that I worked with, prudence. At the time, I didn't know what the word prudence meant. I had to go home and research it, but it meant wisdom and caution. So you can yap, 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 yap all you want, and you can be outspoken, but it's important to be prudent and to be wise in your response to give criticism with kindness. So you don't have to be liked, he told me one time, but make sure they respect you. And
Mm.
I think that's so important for us Black women to understand, because I think we are so wanting to be liked,
Yes.
and
Ah.
not just Black women. I speak because I'm a Black woman, but I've encountered this across races where we want to be nice, we want to belong, and so sometimes we just get into this spiral of silence where we don't even offer our opinion if it differs from someone else, because we want to not feel isolated, we want to feel accepted and stuff. But likability, as that book says, is a trap. And to me, it's better to be respected, because you're not always going to be liked. In there are moments, or there are spaces where it doesn't matter how nice you are just not going to be liked. What
That
you
is so
want, what you want in that instance is to be respected, respect for what you do, respect for your ideas, and respect for the value that you can offer in this moment, or in the project, or whatever the situation is.
Have you run into situations where, because you have learned that you rather respect than to be nice, were there situations where the people that didn't like you kind of removed you from groups or didn't want
Of
to work with
course.
you? How did you handle those situations? Because a lot
Are
of
not
people,
included. or not
Yeah.
included in the first place. My experience, I mean, I don't try to knock on the door. I know they always say when doors are closed, you should be
Mhm.
knocking on that. I don't. I maybe it's something I need to work on in terms of if you're closing the door, I allow it to stay closed.
Mhm.
And maybe in instances, then it's better to build relationship and try to find favor. But I tend to read the situation. I think I try to read the room because
Mhm.
there are instances with groups with industries that I know a lot about, that have had global experience in, that I'm not invited, I'm not included, and it's not like I'm not visible. I have a very active social media page. I'm not Beyonce, so I don't have thousands of followers, but I have enough.
Right.
And I think what I have to say has a lot of value. And yet it's clear that I'm not invited, I'm not followed
Mhm.
by people who ordinarily in different environments we were together, we were colleagues, we were operating together, we were supporting each other. But sometimes when you move out of a space, people can't relate to you in the same way.
Mhm.
You become a PhD, you become a professor, doctor, or people are recognizing you in certain quarters that y- people who you left behind, and I wouldn't say behind, that what you separated in some way. I think that they don't know how to adjust to this other you that showed
Ah.
up.
Mhm.
I would say an evolved you, because I think that you cannot undergo a period of education and be unchanged by it.
True.
I don't understand how they would want you to be educated and then stay the same. And I believe that we should lift people up, not to meet them where they are. In communication, I know how to communicate
Yeah.
with various groups of people, because if I'm having a conversation with an 8-year-old child on this Zoom, I would use a different language, a different style, so I know how to communicate to different groups. What I don't think we should do when we're educated is to somehow try to be liked, to be accepted, that you are trying to stay where you were 5 years ago. You can't. What's the point in that?
That's true.
You're supposed to model and be an example to other people who want to achieve more, who are not complacent, who see more for their lives. So yes, that's a long answer, but the short answer is that yeah, I've
That
been
was
I've
a
been
great answer,
yeah,
actually.
I've been excluded quite a
Uh,
bit.
So, what are some of the things that you've seen? Well, some of the biggest mistakes you've seen professionals make when building their personal brand?
To start on social media.
Hmm.
Take away TikTok. Some of my students were crying, real tears when TikTok went away for a weekend. But say we go back to a period when there is no social media. What would your brand be? Social media is like any other communicative tool. It's a platform. It's a tool to convey your brand when you've already discovered what your brand is. And it doesn't matter what industry, if you're an entrepreneur, a doctor, lawyer, academic, politician, it doesn't matter what industry. Everybody has a personal brand, whether you're working on it or not, whether you believe in personal branding or not, whether you built a brand or not, you have a personal brand because your brand is you, and it's the sum of your talents and your skills and your persona, your human skills, your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, your core values, and your character. And then we have the perception of other people, because our brand also live in the minds of other people. And sometimes what we think about ourselves is at odds with what other people think about us, especially potential employers or people who you, customers, clients, people who you want to achieve some advantage from. If they have a different perception, then you're not going to win anything from them. It has to align. And when your view of yourself and what your selected audience, the target audience, the one that you want to see you, is aligned, then you have a strong brand. If your brand is unknown, then it's weak. If your brand is misaligned. You think something of yourself and they think something different, then the brand tends to be weaker. And so the challenge is visibility. I think because people, 4.5 billion people are online and we live in this virtual world all day on the phone, we assume that building a brand is just being visible. One lady on LinkedIn recently said visibility is the currency of personal branding. And I was like, no, 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 it is not the currency. Who you are is the currency. The unique value that you can deliver in your niche is the currency. That impressive PR lady you had on, she was able to tell you how she solved all sorts of problems, how she dealt with all sorts of situations. Her expertise was so clear. That to me is a strong personal brand. Then she can come on a podcast like this so that selected people can see her potential clients, can be in touch with her. They can, so it's part of building first, figuring out what your brand is, and then okay, who is the audience? Who do I need advantage from? Who do I need to land opportunities from? If it's a job, okay, who are the potential employers that I need to see me? It doesn't have to be the people on social media. I met a doctor recently when I did a presentation for Brown University Medical School. And she said, I asked who the audience, her audience was, and she said the surgeon. Because she was, I think she reads the scans of
Okay.
when surgery is going on. She reads the scans or something like that. So her audience wasn't all of us out here on social media. Her audience was the surgeon in the room because she needed to interpret this thing for him or her and make sure that they're understanding exactly what she's about. And that's what I want people to understand, that the biggest mistake that you're making is to think that your brand is your social media. That's like putting on the roof of a house first. It looks pretty, but that's not the foundation of your brand. When you look at the pillars of a house, the foundation is your character, your expertise, your capabilities, your values. I'm sorry, right? Your core values, things like that. And if you were to, let me try to find my little microphone here. If you focus on that, your capability, your character, then you're building credibility. That's the beginning of it. You're building credibility at the top there. And then once you've built credibility based on who you are and your capabilities, then you can look at collaboration, communication, and visibility. You can't start at visibility because you're visible, but you have a lot of followers, but we don't get a real sense of what you can deliver.
So you're basically saying your work that you do on yourself before you even get out there and start promoting it, or are you doing networking as you're building yourself one-on-one, excuse me, like going to in-person places versus just being all over social media, more
I,
direct on one?
Yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be on social media. And I think I don't want people to get me wrong. I'm not saying, because if you're invisible, if you're not known, if you don't raise your hand in a meeting, nobody knows that you have expertise. Expertise is not just what you know, it's what you share. But you have to determine where the audience is. Is your audience on social media? Or is your audience down the road in a church? Is your audience at the community meeting that you want to connect? Are they your audience? When you're on social media, you're most of the time you probably know this, Leilani. When you're on social media, most of the time you're talking to your secondary publics. When you're talking to your main primary publics, it's when you're writing an email and you're connecting directly with a potential client, with a colleague, with somebody that you want to collaborate with. Most of those conversations, sometimes you will get those kinds of connections on social media because that's the nature of it, but real relationship building is offline. And I think brand building, once they're clear about what your value is and what problems you can solve for them, then you can communicate that to your second republics. So let people know that you are, this is what I'm about, this is what my business is about. And that's why we build websites, so that we can lead people to a space where they can learn more about us. So people are using their social media platforms to post content, but we don't know you. We need you to know who you are. Everybody's an expert now. We want you to know what at what point did you become this expert? What is it based on? So they're not doing the work, but they're being visible. And I think that one has to come before the other.
That
Even while you show up, you still need to be doing the work behind the scenes on who you are, the value you can offer, the skills that you have, what problems those skills can solve. Your degree alone and your years of experience. It's a worse answer to say why do you want this job? And you tell how many years of experience you have. That only tells you the length of time that you've been doing it. It doesn't really tell us whether you can actually do the job.
that's true. That was a great tip. Great
Thank you.
information. Um, so as a professor and a consulting coach, how do you balance your life and juggling both things?
There's no balance, my darling.
No balance. Oh gosh.
I would love to say that there is equilibrium, but there is not. There is not. And I am being more intentional though. And I people who work hard and people understand that they have to put in the hard yards to get to the next level, they may also appreciate that if we don't have health, if we don't focus on well-being, then we can't achieve. Once you're ill, that's it. That's the only focus. So I try to put my health first. These days, I used to go really hard. I still wake up very early, 3:30, can't go back to sleep. It's a problem, I will tell you.
Mm,
I'm not recommending it to people. I'm just saying that's where my body clock is because when I come home from my daytime job, I have to look at my client emails. I may want to work on a blog article. I may want to do some videos. There are always things to do in your business, as you well know. So
yeah.
to have a full-time job, there is value in having that job because when you're starting, I'm not starting as an entrepreneur, but as a business coach I work with would say, maybe you should talk to her too. She would say, I'm a part-time entrepreneur, and there's no such thing. There's no such thing.
Really? No, it's
Uh,
not.
such thing. But for me, I think that people who understand hard work knows that you don't have a choice, you have to do it. But these days I'm trying to make sure that I am looking after my well-being first. And I put days in. I said, okay, this morning I had a couple things to do. And I said, okay, I'm going to block off 2 hours. I actually left the phone in another room. I'm trying to break up with my phone a little bit. So I left it in another room and I got whatever I was going to do. Two things, I got it done. And I think that's how I have to do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. And as an academic, we only teach 3 days for the week.
Oh, that's good.
So it's perfect,
That helps a
actually.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you mentioned being a Black immigrant woman in America.
Yeah.
What mindset or support system helps you keep showing up boldly?
I think the people from Jamaica will tell you. I don't know if you've met any Jamaicans, but Jamaicans, we're collectively a confident people.
Mm,
And we have what to stand on. When Jamaicans enter the room, we're not apologizing for our presence.
really?
We don't have this primitive innocence. We do not believe that we're better than you, but we certainly do not think that you are better than us.
Wow.
And so every room that we enter, we already occupy space. And I'm so grateful that I grew up in Jamaica with this grit. And I think every time I encounter African Americans, I understand and I come in with sympathy because the circumstance is different. The
Mm,
environment of your growing up is different.
right.
Whereas when we are in the Caribbean, we are, even though we are descendants of slaves, we fought against slavery in the same way you guys did here, but we have a 95% Black majority population.
Oh, yeah.
So when you are in that space, I mean, yes, there's colorism. Everywhere where Black people exist, there is colorism
Right.
because of the descendants of the so-called planter classes and interracial relations, and you have migration, so you have uh, a variety of cultures in Jamaica. Our motto is out of many one people. But I think the Black majority of Jamaicans have done so well in sport, in music. Marcus Garvey is our first national hero. Why am I thinking keep falling out? Uh, Marcus Garvey is our first national hero, which is a familiar figure in the civil rights movement in the United States. And so when you come out of a culture like this, then you have every reason to be confident.
Mm.
And if people are not confident is because of their personal, family, individual circumstances. But
Right.
collectively, I think we got a lot. Jamaica can be a poor society with high crime and stuff like that. It's a poor economy. It's uh, it's 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 not an economy like the United States, but I think material deprivation gives us a lot of grit as
Mm.
well. I personally wasn't always confident because of personal issues, but I grew up and was fortunate early on to be around confident people,
Mm.
uh, reggae entertainers who are larger than life,
I bet.
and politicians who they don't think they can do any wrong. So when you are in that kind of environment and you have to lift your game in order to be able to relate to them, and even as a woman, I think once I came into this culture, and I come in straight from Jamaica. Remember, I came in, I went to New Zealand. I was applying for jobs in the United States for years prior to that. Nobody answered me, not even one response. And I think because I wasn't educated here. But
Mm.
as soon as I finished a PhD in New Zealand, which I imagine is because it's in an industrialized, buoyant economy,
Mm.
a white majority place, then suddenly I was getting responses. So when I was teaching in Australia and I decided to move back to the Northern Hemisphere, the responses from employers were a little bit more welcoming. So I came into this country feeling a little bit strange because I didn't know the society as well. We used to visit just to buy stuff and bring back home, spend all we have and bring it back to Jamaica. But when I came here to live, I'd already been fully formed
Mm.
as a
Okay.
professional, as a woman with global experience. I
Mm.
understood what my value was, and at the time, I remember I was working on it. I was trying to figure this thing out. Who am I? What can I deliver? I'm so skilled. Surely there must be some common thread. There must be a place that I can land. And so when my professor said, maybe you should take the space in academia to become an expert in your field. I don't know if she even remembers saying that, because that was the thing that clicked for me.
Mm.
You need space and an opportunity to become an expert in your field. And when I look back at it, I realized that she didn't assume I was an expert. Just because I had a PhD, it wasn't an assumption.
Mm.
She said, you now, I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, you need to write papers, you need to write books. That's what they do in academia. You need to contribute to knowledge. That's why you have a PhD, to add to knowledge. So you need the space to write these papers, to teach, to do all the things that will allow you to build expertise. I thought it was the greatest advice I ever got.
Yeah.
And I jumped on that until I realized that it's not just expertise. You do have to know yourself too, because no matter how smart you are, if you're not, if you can't work harmoniously with other people, if you can't communicate, if you can't demonstrate leadership, then those are intangible human skills that sometimes we don't talk enough about.
Right. So do you think people can be born leaders or they would really need to get leadership training and
They
communicate?
have to be leadership training. I mean,
Mm.
everybody's a leader in my view because everybody has agency. Everybody can take charge of their own life. Everybody can take responsibility at any point, no matter what the challenge is. There is always room to take responsibility for your own life. Everybody has a vision of what they may not share it all the time, but everybody has a vision of what they would like their life to be and can take steps to achieve their goals. So I don't believe that leaders are people who are simply given titles, or they somehow land in a position and then suddenly they are the leaders and we are the followers. So I in my client work, in my coaching work, what I train people is everybody has leadership potential. Everybody is leading in their own sphere. So when I will ask a question about, okay, so you lost your mom, all right, what did that teach you about leadership? And then people open up. It's so amazing. That's when they realize that they're already leading. If
Mm,
you say that you want to be an accountant or a financial analyst, uh, what what do your family members come to you for? And if they come to you for the budget, or they know that you can stretch a dollar, why is that not a part of the conversation that you're having when you go to a job? Why is that somehow? One lady said to me, "What, isn't that frou-frou? Wouldn't they see that as soft?" No, they see it as real.
mm,
It may be something no one has ever said before. So everybody can demonstrate leadership. Leadership is not a title. You're not born a leader. You may develop levels of confidence and assertiveness that people say, "Oh, you're assertive, you should be the leader." But
mm,
there's so many reserved people. My best friend is a very reserved woman, and she's a professor teaching.
mm,
So part of it is understanding what your value is. You don't have to be the loudest in the room. You don't have to be the one in charge, because you're already in charge of your space. You can be a leader in your niche. You can
mm.
be a leader in the podcast space. You are a leader in the podcast space. I hope you know that you're doing great work, and I
Thank
love the
you.
conversations that you have
Oh,
with the
thank you.
women. Yeah.
You are the first person to tell me before interviewing them that they actually watch the shows. Now they may
Yeah,
have, but nobody has actually told you actually watched them
I did.
and
Three, two
have
and two and a half episodes. Two
yeah,
and a half.
and then
Yeah.
have information about them, details of the people that I interviewed. So that's pretty cool. So thank you for checking out the show.
Of course, absolutely. I do my research.
So tell me about your Own Your Value Masterclass. Who is it for, and what transformation do you hope to create with it?
Thank you so much for asking. When I really started with personal branding, I really wanted to intervene in the conversation on personal branding, because I noted that everybody was talking about building a digital presence, and that advice is so rooted. It's like talking into the deep, because there's so much confusion about what personal branding is and why it actually matters. And so I wanted to create an online course, because I've been doing so much face-to-face coaching for so long. I needed something which was self-paced, and I really wanted to work with mid-career professionals, because these are the folks I would encounter in my coaching practice. They already have their degrees or their masters. Some of them have PhDs. Some of them are highly accomplished. One of my clients is a former diplomat. I have a lot of politicians, people working at international organizations, very, very smart, accomplished people. But they have a degree, they have all these years of experience, and yet they become as confused as I was, kind of feeling that mid-career rut. There's a moment in our career, maybe 15, 20 years in, 25 years for some people, where they say, "What else can I do?"
Yeah.
Or I want to pivot. I'm frustrated, I'm not moving up. Or some of them who are already really at the top and they're leaders in their field, they want to move sideways, and or they want to change their approach to their job, or they want to be a leader in or a bigger voice in their industry. And so these are the folks that I like to work with, because first of all, they're serious. They're not undergraduate students. They're adults, and they spend 8, 10, 12 hours at work and still commit to professional development. I have the utmost respect for people like that. And so my work with them is to say, okay, you have all this experience. You went to Harvard, great. What value do you deliver in your field? Or what's your personality like? How do you lead your team? What is your approach? What's your strategy of resolving this conflict that you're having with this employee? And if it's somebody who wants to be more of a trusted voice, more expert, want to be seen as an expert, then we're looking at kind of figuring out of all this experience that you have and all this knowledge, can we whittle it down to 3 ideas? Because you can't be talking about everything that you know. We want to niche down what problem can you actually solve? What is the areas of expertise? No more than 3 areas of expertise that you want. And sometimes for them, some of them have gone through, like me, various industries, and they need to find the common thread in that industry. Others are pivoting. And so owning your value means that we come back to the drawing table.
Mm.
We figure out your human skills. We're going to figure out all of your capabilities, and we're going to focus on the ones that are most sellable, the ones that can take you where you want to be. Nothing is lost. We're not leaving the others, but we're showing how what you've done before, how it relates to what you're doing now, so that you don't feel like all of that was wasted. And
Mm.
then we work on communicating that. And not everybody wants to be online. Not everybody has to be online, because it depends on who the audience is. For me, I am a communication practitioner. I began my career as a broadcast journalist. I'm a speaker. I'm going to speak. That's my strength. It's not that because I love TV, or but this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm an easier talker than I am a writer. I can write, but I find it easier. I can open the microphone, and you can put any mic in front of me, as you can probably tell.
Yes, very confident with it as well.
You can probably tell. And so I lean into my strengths. So I get people, you don't have to be doing videos. Nobody's forcing you to go on LinkedIn doing a video or start a YouTube channel. We're saying, who is the audience? Is it maybe teaching a class? Maybe at a local community college. It may be interacting with the people in your church. Some people, my sister came to me recently, and she wanted public speaking training because she wanted to volunteer to talk more in her church. So for everybody is going to be different. And so not everybody needs to be online. In fact, I suggest that owning your value means that you figure out here your capabilities, your character, how you use that character to solve everyday problems. And then how can you translate those everyday problems to the organization or the space where you do your professional work? Because our brand is us, and everywhere we go, it shows up.
That's true.
You don't get a brand from the job title that you have. Oh, I'm a professor at the university. That's not my brand. That's a job. That's a title. That's what I do. That's not who I am.
So
So
that, oh, go ahead.
so you last thing I'll say, you take your brand to the employer. And when you leave that employer, you would have taken your brand with you. So you're loaning your brand to the employer. So you have to figure out what value have you brought to the employer, because the employer is not doing you a favor by giving you this job and paying you this money every month. You are exchanging your skills and your expertise for compensation and for benefits. So it's an equal arrangement. It's transactional, and you are an equal participant in this transaction. So the own your value class starts with defining what that value is, who you are, your core values, your personality, and how you solve problems with that. Then we get into the more job specific areas. Then we work on communicating your value in job interviews in whatever space you feel like you want to make an impact.
That sounds like a great masterclass for people to join.
Thank you. And it's my full name. They can go to Hume Johnson at .com, HUMEJOHNSON.com.
And you talk so much about the brand. You are the brand. You are the brand. That's why you said or named your book Brand You.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I see that you featured it in a lot of MBA programs as well.
It's right here. I just did this is the what do you call this coffee? The not for resale one.
Okay.
So I just rebranded. This was the original. I'm still debating which picture was better. This was the original
Okay.
intervention. And this I thought I needed to say I understood more about personal branding because that one was done in 2018. And I feel, not feel, I know that my experience coaching a lot more folks, I have a deeper understanding of what personal branding is. I know it's a serious career management strategy and not just a social media promotion tool. And I also know that it's central to leadership. And so my next book will talk about how important personal branding is to effective leadership and leadership development. So this book, I'm grateful. I only heard by accident during the pandemic that a couple of MBA programs in strategic leadership had it as a featured text.
Wow. How
Hopefully
cool
they're
was
still
that?
using it. And I heard because during lockdown, a student from Minnesota State University wrote to me to ask me to tell me that it's a feature text in his MBA program and he needs to find a copy.
Wow.
And then a professor from Clayton State University in Georgia, she reached out and I actually talked in their class a couple of times, their MBA class, and she sent me some of the homework that they did from the book, and it's so useful that now I use it in my own class for seniors who are graduating, so that uh, I want them to understand that a degree, even though it's great to come and do it, you have to be able to translate it and translate your value in an effective way to land opportunities. And the economy is so much more competitive. So many people lost their jobs in the last few months that have to be back on the job hunt, who are mid-career professionals who may say, I have all this experience, but everybody else coming to the table will have a lot of experience as well. They
Right.
will have the same types of qualification. So there must be a way in which you can differentiate yourself. And the personal branding process, the own your value process, allows you to define and discover and then leverage and articulate your unique value, the distinctive value that you can bring to the table in your industry.
Is the Own Your Value, is it an online class or is it somewhere they meet with you in person?
It's an online class, but I do for people who are doing the program, because people start at different times.
Mhm.
Then if you have questions, then they can always reach out to me. Sometimes I'll send a video response. And so people who are doing the course are always able to connect with me, and they do so quite frequently.
How do they find your book? Is it on Amazon
It
or?
is on Amazon. So
Oh,
I have several books. But you know the academic books, nobody cares. Nobody cares about my academic books.
bye.
But these books that I actually self-publish, people care about these for some reason.
Hmm.
So I have this little workbook that I just came out with. It's about Speak to Connect, which helps you to identify your communication style and presence. And Brand You is available on Amazon.
Okay.
Brand You with an exclamation.
Audible, can we listen to it on Audible as well?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. But you know what? It's a workbook. It's a book with a lot of text, but it's also really a series of questions
Oh,
that
okay.
I'd love people buy the print version, grab a pencil, and just think and write and gather information. The course has a lot more videos, a lot more information, and you can also sign up for a one-on-one coaching consultation with me, humejohnson.com, for all the details.
Sounds great. So before we get out of here, what is one message that you want every woman listening to this podcast um, when it comes to owning her voice and value? What kind of message would you have for her?
Your voice matters. You matter. I'll tell you something. We didn't get into this, but when I was born, and I haven't shared this publicly, Uh, I did create a video on it once. I was scared to post it. When I was born with a tumor on my upper lip. and what is called a shortened lingual frenulum, which is that little thing that connects the tongue to the roof of the
Mm.
floor of the mouth. And that was short. So I had to do several surgeries and speech therapy in order to speak. So I'm not just saying own your voice because I was a broadcaster. If my mother didn't have the courage to, despite all the odds against her, to get me fixed and to make sure that my voice matters and that I use it. And when I said I wanted to be a broadcaster, she didn't say don't,
Oh,
even though she carried a lot of shame around that and around that period of my life. So when I say own your value, I mean whatever it is that you want to do and you want to pursue and what you want to say, uh, it matters, and you don't want to waste your life in silence.
I love that. That was definitely the message.
Yeah,
That's the word for all of
yeah,
us.
yeah.
So before we get out of here, I want to say this one more time. How can they find you?
All right, so I'm at humejohnson.com, HumeJohnson. It has all my information, all the coaching services I offer. I'm also on LinkedIn at Dr. Hume Johnson. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm on YouTube at Dr. Hume, Hume. So it would be awesome. I'm also on Instagram, same thing, Dr. Hume Johnson. And I'm on Threads as well because I see you on there. So feel free to connect, and I look forward to meeting and talking with folks who want to own their value.
I love it. I am definitely going to subscribe to your channel because I know you're giving
Thank you.
out a lot of tips on there as well.
Thank you so much, my darling. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing your brilliance, your truth, your voice with us. And your story reminds us that personal branding isn't about image. It's about
Mhm.
uncovering who you truly are.
Excellent
I
summary.
love it.
Excellent summary.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning
Thank you.
in. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Hume. And
Thank
until
you.
next time, guys, bye.
To the loops. Bye. Take care.
You too.